Some players are simply god level when it comes to Streetball. They had the skills, the filthy crossovers, the swag, and the confidence to run the blacktop like it was a MyPark in 2K. But the moment they stepped into the NBA, the fundamentals became not so fundamental. Sure, they could dominate the blacktop, but what about the hardwood? And what do you think happened to the best of them? Well, to find out, we need to go back to the golden era of basketball mixtapes, when grainy footage and VHS tapes ruled the streets. An era where Rafer skipped to Alston owned the concrete and had his name spray painted on it. Talent, they say, is never enough. But try telling that to a 12-year-old kid with the best handles in a Jamaican neighborhood in the heart of New York City. Yeah, that's exactly where Rafer was at the time. On the surface, it was very easy to undermine his talent. I mean, he had a small stature and a nickname that sounds like a cartoon character. But make no mistake, this dude was a wild streetball wizard who made defenders quit mid-game and fans lose their minds like it was Game 7 of the finals. So, how did it all start for him? Well, Rafer was only 14 when his coach boxed him into a car and drove him all the way to Rucker Park, the holy grail of street basketball. The plan was pretty simple. Put on a show and win the crowd, kind of like America's Got Talent, except everyone's got a crossover and your ego's on the line. Anyway, Rafer initially suffered from stage fright, but once he got into his groove, he became unstoppable. Suddenly, the quiet kid from Queens was turning grown men into highlight reel extras. 1 second, he's slicing through defenders like he's in NBA Street Volume 2, the next, he's tossing no-look dimes like a Harlem Globetrotter. He was cooking everybody and anybody who challenged him on the court. And the crowd? They absolutely loved it. So much so that they nicknamed him the Energizer. It was a befitting moniker considering how pumped the atmosphere was every time Rafer got on the ball. But unknown to the crowd, this young fella was only just scratching the surface. By the next summer, Rafer was 15 and already a local legend. People weren't just watching him for watching's sake. They were waiting for magic, and he kept delivering with his lightning-fast crossovers and superb ball handling. But like every other streetball legend, he had that one play that cemented his legacy.
The Lord, thank you, genius. Operation Project English. Commander-Chief of Flight Staff. Check the aircraft.
Dude was a fast break at full speed, and then all of a sudden, he flicks the ball behind him, skips mid-stride, yes, literally skips, and throws a no-look pass right into his teammate's hands for the slam. The whole arena was on fire, and the euphoria of the moment, the commentator christened him Skip to My Lou. Sadly, all that playground greatness didn't quite follow him into college. Rafer bounced around 3 different schools, including Ventura and Fresno City, where he put up a decent 11 points and 7 assists per game. But that was about it. No highlight mixtapes, no viral clips, no defenders left face down on the hardwood. And worst of all, his numbers and performances weren't stellar enough to land him a spot in the NBA. But amidst his poor run, his high school coach Ron Aclerio believed in him. He knew this kid had more sauce than an Italian restaurant. He just needed a spotlight. So Coach Ron started circulating tapes of Rafer doing Rafer things. And boom, the young fella landed a spot with And One, a team of elite street ballers built for chaos, dunks, and smashing egos.
Pay it up, you got to give it up, cause this shit gotta live. Y'all know how it is when you got kids. It's not a game no more. Tired of being poor.
For Rafer, it was a perfect stage to remind the world how good he was on the court. In fact, he was so good, the And One crew chopped up his highlights and made him a star. On VHS, on TV, and eventually, around the world. Having cemented his reputation as a street legend with And One, Rafer declared for the 1998 NBA draft and was selected as the 39th pick by the Milwaukee Bucks. And just like that, Rafer became the first streetball player to make it to the NBA. But this wasn't your typical happily ever after story. Rafer started off with a bench role in Milwaukee, and before you could say crossover, he was waived by the Golden State Warriors in 2002. Things picked up from there as he had decent runs with the Toronto Raptors, Miami Heat, and Houston Rockets. He also rocked the Orlando Magic jersey and helped them make a run to the 2009 NBA Finals. Yet, something felt off. The magic, the raw streetball energy, was never quite the same. And that skip in his step kinda turned into a jog. But why was that the case? Well, let's be real. Lasting 11 years in the NBA is nothing to sneeze at. That's a solid career in any era. But for someone who once made defenders consider early retirement on the blacktop, his NBA run felt a little watered down. And honestly, it wasn't all on him. See, Rafer's game was built on fun, flair, and ankle insurance fraud. But as you know, most NBA coaches are like strict gym teachers who think doing a simple spin move is showing off. You cross up one defender with a skip step and a smirk, and the coach is already subbing in a third stringer who plays solid fundamental basketball. So essentially, Rafer had to tame his streetball flair just so he could fit into actual systems. That means no more ISO dancing, just pick and rolls and corner threes. Of course, that adjustment exposed his other weaknesses. You see, while Rafer had the handles of a wizard, his jumper was more like a dice roll at Vegas. That explains why he averaged just 10 points and 5 assists per game, while shooting 38% from the field and 35% from downtown. So, was he a bust? Well, not really. You see, by streetball standards, Rafer is a legend, no debate. But by box scores, he was very underwhelming. And as sad as it may sound, he is not alone in this category. Sebastian Telfair was another baller who ruled the streets but flopped under the NBA lights. Like Rafer, Telfair had a cult following on the street, even before he could grow a proper mustache. For real, this brother had the whole of Brooklyn buzzing like a barbershop on a Saturday morning. Large crowds were showing up just to watch him do layup lines. And by 15, he was already smashing records, including New York State's all-time assist record. He also had robust media coverage. From Slam magazine covers to ESPN documentaries, every mainstream media outlet wanted a piece of him. And of course, every blue blood program in the country wanted him too. But guess what? This wonder kid looked at college and said, "Nah, I'm too good for this." So straight to the NBA it was. It was a bold move from an inexperienced youngster, but his hype was so loud it felt like he could skip college, skip training camp, and still drop 30 on his NBA debut. Anyway, draft night comes, and Telfair is the 13th overall pick. Expectations were quite high for him, and rightfully so. In fact, the feeling on the street at the time was that once he got into the NBA, it was over for the entire league. And indeed it was, but just not in the way we thought. In the NBA, Telfair's game dropped badly. Telfair went from being the neighborhood wizard to a guy just occupying jersey space on a crowded bench. But how did that even happen? How does a guy who had defenders doing the Macarena in high school suddenly become a turnover machine? First off, consistency was not in his vocabulary. He jumped teams like your local homie hopper. Blazers, Celtics, Timberwolves, Clippers, Cavs, Suns, Raptors all had him on their roster at some point. But they all dumped him because he couldn't deliver the goods like he did in his high school days. All of a sudden, his flashy passes that once wowed crowds turned into highlight reel turnovers. And those silky pull-up threes became pull-up airballs with extra wind. And then his off-court drama, Legal issues, locker room whispers, and that stubborn resistance to playing defense just made it worse. It's easier to say now in hindsight, but Sebastian Telfair was a bust. Yes, he had demigod energy and status on the playground, but in the NBA, he couldn't even buy minutes. That's how poor he was. The league absolutely chewed him up, spit him out, and left us all wondering what if he'd gone to college first? What if he just waited one more year? Well, I guess we'll never know. Moving on now to Phil Champion, aka Hot Sauce. Wondering how that nickname came about? We'll get to that in a bit, but for now, let me tell you about how it all started for him. Born on the 13th of June 1976, Phil was a phenomenal streetball player. In his neighborhood, he was seen and worshipped like basketball royalty. But it wasn't until he signed with the And One mixtape tour in 2002 that his sauce really started spilling nationwide. Now, And One had plenty of talent on rotation at the time. Players came and went like fast food orders. But not Phil. He was too spicy to bench. So good, they basically gave him a permanent spot. His crazy dribbling combos, crossovers, and flashy playing style placed him way ahead of other street ballers. So, why Hot Sauce?
You know, during the times I used to go to different parks and stuff and, you know, just killing people and stuff. And, you know, when I shoot the ball, I just be like sauce.
But here's the thing. All his sauce, his professional career was a disaster. Don't get me wrong, Phil Champion was a streetball legend. He inspired a whole generation of ballers and even appeared in the 2006 movie Crossover. In fact, some of his moves are still being mimicked in today's NBA. But when it came to climbing the professional ladder, he didn't quite cut it. The closest he came to playing pro basketball was in the ABA with the College Park Spiders, and a few invites to NBA Summer League tryouts. But he never got that big league contract. Why, you might ask? Well, Phil had everything you want in a streetball player and more. His playing style was spectacular and sometimes mesmerizing. But it was seen as impractical for professional basketball teams. Although he was 6 feet tall, scouts and team officials considered him too small to guard the towering figures and physical monsters that dominated the league at the time. And speaking of defense, Hot Sauce couldn't guard a parked car. Then there's the shooting problem. His jumper was as broken as your grandma's Wi-Fi. Okay, maybe it wasn't that bad, but for someone trying to make the NBA, it was a big problem. Some folks might argue he came in the wrong era. Back in the early 2000s, the league was all about gritty defense, post-play, and fundamentals. Perhaps today's NBA might have embraced him, but back then, it was a tough sell. And you could say the same about Rafer and Phil Champion as well. What are your thoughts? Why aren't goated street ballers successful enough to crack the NBA? Could it be the pressure? The larger crowds? Or is it just two completely different sports? Streetball and basketball? Let us know in the comments below.